Hey, what's up everyone? Welcome back. We've decided to pull the cab off again. We're trying to body drop it, trying to get at least another 2 inches out of it, maybe one and a half. Either way, it's going down. So in order to do that, I'm gonna have to remove the dash. So I just brought it down here so I can just move all this mess out the way, get it done. In the cab, we were noticing that the air conditioning, like I don't even think I'll be able to sit in there. You probably got to be about 4'2" to be comfortable. It's not going to work. So we've decided to go ahead and get rid of the whole AC system. So it's another reason why we pulled it off. The dash, I'm going to drill out the spot welds, go ahead and pull it off as one piece, even though I cut it. And then that way, when I put it back, I could just put it back in the same area, clamp it down, spot weld it back in again, and it'll look just like it did. These are my keeper. Well, I'm gonna keep them for now. Once I decide I need them, don't need them, um, and then move on to the next. The dash is out, completely out. And for those of you who were wondering why I was using a hatchet and a hammer, well, I was only doing it to show you that you can use almost any tool. You don't really have to have tool. You could have used a little chisel like that, maybe, or they actually make a tool to separate skins. We went on ahead and took the AC unit out completely. Okay, now you see with the AC unit out the way, I'm going to bring the bench seat because we're putting a 1965 El Camino bench seat. I'm going to be able to trim the firewall a little more. See my wiring, I'll do something with that later. This inner cowl here, I'll trim it down as much as I can. Once I set the other one out on there, I'll build my own wall that will attach this firewall to the cowl. If all my measurements are correct, this thing should just fit right on there perfectly. So I'm going to trim this a little bit. I'm going to move my bracing up a little higher because I want it to come down a little bit lower. We've set the cab down on the body. As you can see, it didn't allow us to go down all the way because it's hitting on the brake booster. I don't know if you can tell from over there. So we still need about 2 inches, maybe 3 inches to come down. So I'm just gonna have to cut the hole here and just let it come down like it needs to. But we're getting closer. This is gonna be probably the final fitment of the cab. So we've got to move forward a little bit and down. So, and then after that, we'll try on the fenders and see what they look like. Got the cab kind of set level, roughly where I want it. The most important thing is the fenders. Now the fenders have to center up. My wheel opening has to center up to the wheel. If that doesn't look good, it messes the whole thing up. So I'm trying to get it lined up. As you see, Ford was thinking similar, kind of forward thinking. Thank you, Ford. From 1958 to 2003, these frame rails are only a quarter of an inch wider than the original frame. So cool. I thought that was kind of cool. Right now I'm hitting on the frame, on the ear horns. I think that's what they're called. Frame ears, frame horn. I don't know. Anyways, I'm about to cut it off. And I think I don't need this much frame sticking out. Well, no, I better be safe. I'll just cut the ears off so I'm able to set my fender down, and then we'll take a look at the sides and see what it needs from there. Now that these frame ears, frame horns, whatever they are out the way, let's set it and see what it looks like. There we go. These fenders are like my indicators. Once these, look straight, then I'm ready to go. Now I'm setting this down. These are out of the way, so I'm hitting on these, and I really don't want to cut this opening. So I guess I'm just going to cut the frame, then I'll figure out my bumper later, if we even put a bumper. But for now, let me mark it. I'll measure it on both sides, and we'll just slice it some more. With no interruptions. So we're pretty much there. Pretty straight. I think this thing fits perfectly centered, exactly where we have the cab right now. So I think I'm going to stick with that. The only issue that I'm having right now, these wheels have adapters. They're probably way over an inch thick. They have spacers and an adapter. Someone put GMC wheels on this Ford. Don't know why, but it's done. So I'm gonna have to come back through, get these wheels off. And see. What I was after was the center of my wheel has to be centered to the fender, because if not, it throws everything off. I think to me, it looks pretty darn good to me. So I'm leaving it there. So as far as the cab goes, a couple more measurements, get them on the money. I'll wrap that up, and then we'll start figuring it out. Let me give y'all a tour. Here's what it looks like from the side. It's coming here. You see my frame horns where I cut them. My initial thought was to weld these original radiator support to this radiator support, but I don't think I'm gonna be able to make that work. I'm gonna play with it though. I sent pictures yesterday. I posted them on Facebook and Instagram, and my dad had mentioned the cab needed to move forward a little bit. I liked it. I thought it was great. I asked on social media, and a couple of my good friends said yes, need to move the cab just a little bit back. So I got my thick 1-inch marker, and I'm just gonna follow the firewall here and mark it and then I'll come back, I'll lift this up, trim it. That way when I reset it down, I'll be able to move the cab back. Also at the same time, while the cab is back, I'm gonna go ahead and build my little bridge on the original cow, so it'll meet up with my 58 cow. Just to show you what I'm talking about, this piece here hits on my, inner cow on the 58. So I'm gonna take an inch out of it, and that should be able to push the cab completely back 1 inch. And I'm hoping that that will be enough. And on the sides, see, I'll level this out, and I'm gonna bring it because it curves kind of like a smiley face. I don't know if you can see on this side how it comes down and then it curves left and then straight. The 58 cow just follows this line all the way straight through. So I'll put me a plate there and just make sure it's flush with this. And I should be able to weld right onto my cow. There's a top view. You can see the black where I'm gonna cut. The red was my first mark. Then you can see how the original firewall curves. I need to just follow that flow all the way. Well, I've got it up. I'm gonna go ahead and clean up all this inside skin, clean my lip up and just prep it for when I weld it together. Also, I'm gonna trim on the floor a little more. Okay, so before we get this thing and level it out and center it up where it needs to be, we need to try the front end one more time, see if we can close the gap in front of the wheel and the fender. We just want to close that gap just a little more, and if it looks good, then we'll go to the next step, which would be centering and leveling out our body. All right, so a couple things just happened here. One, we pulled the wheels off because the wheels kept throwing us off and we couldn't get the fenders to sit right. So I'm glad we did it, because once we did, we were able to lower the fenders down all the way to the front splash pan, or the front valance, whatever it's called. And you see here, it's still sloping up, and as you see the gap's touching right here, and it opens up wide right here, which is telling me that the front needs to come down more. But like I said, it's hitting on that front lower valance, and I didn't want to trim it, so I think I'm just gonna mark the frame and cut the frame off a little more times. Now the second time we learned that we cannot bolt this cab down, we cannot center it up or anything until we have the fenders bolted on. So we went on ahead and drilled and tapped these holes, and we have it bolted on both sides. That way it'll pivot down from here, still give us the gap we need, and that's what we're after, is the gaps. So we want to make them before we have to cut them and make them. All right, what I've done here is I found these are factory hose. They're the same on the inside and outside on both, and I marked it 1/4 of an inch, marked it inside and out on both sides. So now I'm just going to trim it. I don't know if y'all caught that. We were time-lapsing it, and I was using the cutoff wheel. And what ended up happening was it got caught and it exploded. So, this is what we're looking at. It just fell apart. So all the stuff in the inside that you not see there just flew, like trapped me, right? So I had my eye muffs on, and I couldn't even express to you the importance of eye protection. If you've ever had a piece of sheet metal inside your eye the size of an ant leg, put me down to my knees. I had to have it drilled out of my eye. It was awful. You see my wheel, it's going to center up, so it definitely moved back about, I'll let you know right here because this was lined up. So we moved it back 2 1/8 inches because this was meeting up with this before, but now that we've got it moved back. And I think we're going to go ahead and bolt our fenders on while it's lined up. And then for the rest of the way, we will complete the centering of the truck and getting it all level with the fenders bolted on. I might do a quick hood fitment just to make sure the hood's going to fit underneath that. I don't want to, and I'm not going to raise the body anymore, so I hope it fits because it's a nice hood. I'd hate to cut it up, but at the same time, it's what I do. I want to set the bed on there. We set the front end on, and it looked great. It really did. I was so surprised, but not really. So I'm about to cut these bolts out because I don't feel like crawling underneath this thing. All right, so I ran into a couple of issues. I can't get the bed to sit all the way down because it hits on the pan. I'm gonna go ahead and pull the trailer hitch off because we're not pulling any more trailers in this thing. Now I think today we're gonna focus on putting this front end back on. I did notice the radiator support was still fitting here. I was dreading cutting this part of the original radiator support, but then when I put this on, everything just worked out because as you can see right here, the radiator support almost touches the original radiator support, which is exactly what I had in mind. I'll have to cut the brackets out. That way I'll be able to slide it back a little bit more. And then if that will work, we'll be able to bolt our fenders and our front valance back to the original radiator support, which would look super rad. So my original 2003 radiator support is hitting on these brackets. So I'm gonna go ahead and cut them out right quick, get them out the way. Now you see that these butt up against this. So now, once I set it, hopefully wherever it sets, and then I could just come in here and just weld it. And we'll still be able to unbolt the radiator. Hopefully we'll be able to use this same radiator support. So everything's looking good so far. Okay, so we've already ran into a problem just setting it up here. Let me show you what happened. As you see, this slides in here very nicely, right in the slot the way it's supposed to, and the bolt's right there. The problem is, when we dry fitted the front end, I know that my frame sits right here. You know what I mean? So I've got frame right here. I'm gonna go ahead and trim some of this off. I'm gonna mark it and trim it off. Looking at these frame rail, left one, it's about 3.5 inches. The right one, it's about the same, almost 3.5 inches. So I'll cut it around, I don't know, maybe 4 inches just to make sure I have enough room. Maybe 3 3/4, just because I don't want to cut it too much. I don't know, I feel kind of ballsy, maybe 3.5 inches, and we'll see how good I am or not. See if it works. Radiator support is on. It's looking good. I think it's going to work perfectly. We still have a little gap right here, but I can't move it any more back because if I do, then it's going to hit my door. My fender will hit my door. I'll space it out with some square tubing and get it welded together. But I think for now, I think this is good for now. This gives us an idea about how it's going to sit. I'm going to start making what I'm going to use to weld the old radiator support to the new radiator support. Basically, it'll make a 90, it'll be like a frame, and I'll set it around the old radiator support and the new radiator support, and basically weld them together. By the time I'm done, they should be pretty much one piece. What happened here is I went to tighten these up, right? And this one's tight, and there's nothing up here that really bolts the fender. Your next bolts are down here at the bottom. The problem is the bottom of the cab corner of the A-pillar I cut off because they were so rusted out, and I cut them out. So I can't bolt my fender on to line it up. So what I'm gonna end up doing, I'm gonna line it up, and I'm just gonna weld some points on here so it doesn't move. It stays straight. This thing is looking very good. It's looking just like I want it to look. We got everything lined up. We tacked it so it doesn't move. We've got our fenders lined up. We've tacked it so it doesn't move. I don't have any bolt holes for it yet. So yeah, I think for now, I think we're gonna set the hood on, make double check everything, make sure it's good. If everything is good, and then we'll go on to the next step, which is setting the cab and marrying it to the floor finally. Put the hood on. We're doing a little bit of pre-thinking, a little bit of future thinking. Now, we had talked about chopping the roof, and I've got another roof just for that reason. We wanted to chop it. I wanted to chop it 1.5 inches, but throw a wrench in my plans. My wife, this is her truck, and what she doesn't like about this truck is your body line is down here, okay? I'll move the bed down and line it up to this body line here. The problem that she has is that this only goes up maybe 5 inches to the top of this, to the top of the bed. And this here is probably almost 7.5 inches. So the top of the bed sits right here, and it leaves this gap right here. And she didn't like that at all. What she asked me if I could do, if I could section it here and lower this part down instead of bringing the bed up to 7.5 inches, we would be bringing the top half of the cab down. Now that brings, you know, you think about it, can it be done? Yes, it could be done, but here's the challenges. As you remember, my hood is already hitting on the radiator support brackets. So I can't go any lower, because if I do, then I'll have to cut the hood out, the center, raise it up, let the body come down. We don't want a cow hood. The second thing I thought of, what if we raise the body up 3.5, 4 inches? Once we raise the body up 3.5, 4 inches, we've got a huge body drop in here right now. We're basically sitting on pillows just to be able to drive and be sitting, you know, where it looks right. So if we were to raise the whole cab up about 3.5, 4 inches, That would give us enough room, once we get it all put together, to come back and cut out the 3.5 inches out of this middle that we need. And it would drop our hood back down to where we're at now, but the body would be sitting up higher. I think that's what we're gonna do. So I'm gonna go ahead and set it up. I'm gonna measure where it's at now, all 4 corners, and raise it up and try to keep my body line straight with the frame. Okay, so I used my level and I raised it up in the front. And what I'm trying to do is get my frame, the center of the frame, parallel. Right now it's sitting just a little bit high up front, and as you can see, it's sitting low in the back. So I just keep that in mind. It's not a big deal. I've got my level to keep checking it. So now what I'm going to do is measure. I'll find a point in the front and measure, a point in the back and measure, raise it up, put the stands underneath, and we'll see if we can get this thing squared up. So let's say to the headlight, the bottom of the headlight bezel, I have 29. On this side, I've got about 28 3/4. So it doesn't matter. It's got to go up anyway. So, all right. So I said 4 inches. It was at 29, and I'm looking for 34. We are at 32.5. I don't like when I jack it up, it's pulling the cab forward. I'm about to figure out a way to pull it back. Oh, there we go. Wow. That wasn't hard at all. Same spot as that one. We measure again, double check. Look at that. 34. Come on, 34. And 34. Okay. Good day in the neighborhood today. So now, let's do the rear. The rear is a little more challenging, but there's always a solution. Just like in life, you run into problems, and most of the time, they solve themselves. I think this big monster solved mine. Hope this don't bite it too hard. Okay, so same here. We added 5 inches to the front. We want to add 5 inches to the back.